Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm so happy to be here today to welcome you to our Europe Forum. I remember in 2012, we had our first Europe breakfast. And at the time, we were like, well, why a breakfast? It was the idea of getting folks together to meet our Europe interns, to meet our managers, and to hear from them why Europe matters. I think looking back, we started the engagement with Europe because of a couple reasons. And I don't know, maybe some folks may remember this. In 2011, we had our baby boomers, they were resigning, like retiring at 10,000 numbers per day. And FAS decided, well, hey, we need to find a market where we can get diverse candidates, diverse staff to do the work that we need to get done. Plain and simple. And I remember coming into my office and saying, wow, what are we going to do? And I remember going into an office that I just started using, and I looked in there and voila, I saw this Europe sign. And I'm like, what's Europe? And I read it and I'm like, this sounds interesting. And I reached out to Europe and we set up an appointment, and we've never, ever, ever looked back. Today, we may look back. We're going to look back at where we came from, but we're also going to look forward, like what should we do in the future? And we have an amazing panel here today, and we're going to have conversations with them about their vision of Europe. But before we get started, Megan, do you want to share anything with the group in terms of how we spend time together this morning?
Yeah, sure.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Eugene. So first of all, my name is Megan. Welcome everybody. I am a program coordinator in the FAS HR department. We understand that you might have things going on around you, so if possible, please keep your cameras on so we can get to know one another. Um, for we have also reserved some time for the audience to ask speakers some questions after they speak. But for now, I'll turn it back to you, Jane. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Now, Megan works closely with me to run the program details. And I say run this in the sense that it takes a village to do the good stuff that we do at FAS HR and also at Harvard. So our amazing FAS HR team works behind the scenes and helps me to do the work we're doing right now. But I think just for today, you notice that we're in the studio. This is new for us. This is a aha moment. So I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, and to our innovation team, Christian Weisover, we have Greg Amo, Joshua Cassoni, Red Casu, and our amazing Pedro Almazar, one of our most recent Europe graduate. I don't want him to say hello right now because he's going to come on the program later on and you're going to hear from him. But our first order of business is we want to have conversations with two very important sponsors of the Europe program. This would never, ever, ever continue if we didn't have the support from Scott Jordan, the Dean for FAS Administration and Finance, and Tiffany Jodot, who is our FAS HR Dean. And so I want to hear from you both in a few seconds, but I also want to make sure that we let folks know that waiting in the wings, we have Gerald, who formed Europe in 2000, and we have Alyssa, who is our Europe Partnership Director. But let's just concentrate on the conversation that we want to have with Tiffany and Scott. And I want to kind of like pull us back to when Tiffany started. Tiffany, you just finished your 1-year anniversary, and we had a big celebration in HR, like, oh yeah, she did it. We're glad she's still here. And I remember that our dean-elect, Claudine Gay, what she said of Tiffany, she said, Tiffany will be responsible for 2 urgent strategic priorities for the FES: developing a post-pandemic workplace of the future and creating a more diverse and inclusive workforce. In addition, Tiffany will embody Harvard's commitment to excellence through developing and leading a best-in-class HR organization in delivery of high-quality HR service throughout FAS. So that was a lot in terms of what Claudine said about you, and we were like excited. But I'm going to talk in a few minutes, or ask you to talk to us in a few minutes about how does that play into our partnership with Year Up. And Scott, you celebrated your 2-year anniversary.
About 1.5.
1.5. I'm calling it 2 because time moves fast. And I remember Dean Gay said, and I'm reading it, I know you're probably blushing, but it doesn't matter. And Dean Gay said about Scott, this role has never been more critical, particularly as institutions of higher education emerge from a year that has given us a new perspective on both barriers to and opportunities for future academic and institutional excellence. She also said, from the start of the search process, I knew I needed to find a partner with the bold thinking and ability to build strong relationships that enable innovation in a highly complex organization like ours. I needed somebody who understands that to achieve our full aspirations for excellence, we need a vibrant, diverse, and inclusive culture and workforce within the FAS. That's a lot. And as you know, Europe's partnership with FAS and Harvard was and is a pipelining opportunity to find diverse staff to satisfy the needs of our faculty, our students. We're in the business of research and learning, and we want to share or have you share with us how that ties into your vision of the partnership with Europe and also of Harvard as we move into the new century. All right, so Tiffany, thoughts?
So thank you, Attain. I didn't feel overwhelmed prior to this, but I'm excited to be able to really talk about, first and foremost, EDIB, or equity, diversity, inclusion, belonging, should be considered our DNA. And I say that within Harvard, FAS specifically, the true diversity or what sets us apart from others is our staff, it's our people. It's our folks who work in the labs that clean the hard work of cleaning the mouse cages and the food, the intricate food that goes into the mouse cages. All of this work can't be done, or Harvard is not Harvard without our diverse staff in every sense of the word. It's not just about race, it's about thinking, it's about motivations, abilities. So to be able to sit here and engage and speak with Gerald, to speak with Alyssa, to speak with folks who have been part of the program, alumni, it's exciting. And it's very much needed, especially as we're talking about the evolution of work, right?
Yes,
and
right.
what that means in terms of what are the skill sets that are needed, not only now, but what are the skill sets that are needed in the future? What does that mean? How do we define that? How do we, for my TA, my talent acquisition colleagues, what does that look like when we're recruiting folks, when we're looking to enrich the experience of our staff? And not only recruitment, but we need to make sure we're engaging folks so that they stay. And we're so fortunate, we're celebrating a staff member who has been with us for 40 years.
Amazing.
Longer than a lot of us that have been born, right? And still here. The excitement of being able to tap into that longevity is what's important. That's part of our service delivery model. That's part of our mission. And the partnership with Year Up really speaks to that. It speaks to a commitment to excellence, a commitment to innovation. And that is really what we strive for. That's what we strive for as part of our work within FASHR.
Thank you. And Scott, your thoughts?
Thank you, Attain. Before I give my thoughts, though, I do want to give a shout out to you and to your team and to Megan for putting this event on today. And I know there's a whole team, as you said, it takes a village. And to Tiffany, a 1 year anniversary. You've brought so much to the FAS in your experience and your leadership. And
Sky, I'm just going to adjust your mic real fast.
Sure.
See our amazing innovation team. On the ball. Right on
Did you not
target.
hear what I just said? I said nice
Do
things.
what he needs to
You
do.
can say it again though, because it was about me. So
And-
I always appreciate hearing accolades about myself. so
By
you
the
can
way,
say it
that's
again.
Joshua who's on fixing Scott's mic.
Thank you, Joshua.
Of course.
Thank you, Joshua.
Can you hear me now?
You're good now,
Can you hear
Scott.
me? Okay. Well, I was just shouting out to Tiffany for her 1-year anniversary here at Harvard. We are so lucky to have you and the leadership that you've brought to the HR space, and to this question that Dean Gay challenged both of us. Oh, I'd be remiss if I didn't shout out to Dean Gay, who's
Our president.
Soon to be president.
President-elect of Harvard. First time ever an FAS dean has been elected president of Harvard, and of course, first time ever a person of color in that space. And it just feels like part of the family for us here at FAS, and it's just so exciting. But on the sort of subject at hand, Dean Gay challenged Tiffany and me in many ways, as Attain just read. But in my view, none of those ways are at cross purposes. The workforce of the future, diverse workforce, and excellence all go together. It is how we will be excellent in the future is to be diverse and to be flexible and to meet the workforce where it's at, and to bring people into the Harvard community and give folks a place to realize their best talents and be their best selves. That's the future path of excellence here. And we know that coming out of the pandemic, where we learned so much about our ability to be flexible. We went within a week from coming to the office every day, 5 days a week, and for some folks in the animal care and other places, 6 or 7 days a week, to working remotely just like that. And as far as I can tell, didn't miss a beat, didn't lose any productivity. We went from a time when Harvard could put an ad in the Boston Globe and get hundreds of resumes in just because our Veritas was on the page, to a time when it's harder, frankly, to recruit and retain good people. And meeting the workforce where it's at here in the Boston area, there's like so many talented people here, recruiting and retaining people from all walks of life, and sort of shouting to the world, you can be part of Harvard too. That's the challenge ahead of us, and I think we're, with Europe's partnership, we have a pathway towards that.
So, I'm excited. Gerald, I know you're in the wings somewhere, but what are your thoughts? I mean, the audience may not be able to see Gerald, but I can see him smiling. And I want to hear from you if you have any questions for Scott or Tiffany, because I see you sort of like, thinking like, how does Europe satisfy the needs of Harvard? And a little from now, we're going to have a conversation with yourself and Alyssa, but I want to hear your thoughts on this.
Sure. And first of all, thank you, Attain. Your leadership on this in the Europe partnership, to me, is deeply inspiring. And we would not be where we are today without all that you've put in. So thank you very much. What I think, I guess, when I was listening to Tiffany and Scott, is institutions like Harvard are anchor institutions for a region, right? Not only large employers, but influential employers across a region. And I also think about we can't have healthy economies without healthy communities. And so I guess it leads me to think and curious as you talk about how do critical anchor institutions in our society think about access and inclusion within that surrounding community, given the power and influence a place like Harvard has, in the ripple effects when Harvard does something, other people take notice as well. And I'll just say I've been really proud because Harvard was one of the leaders years ago in starting to think about a skills-first approach to hiring, which is slightly ironic given its place it grants degrees, but to be willing to recognize that looking at skills and competencies is part of how we think about talent acquisition, and that was something Harvard pioneered as one of the critical institutions in our community here in Greater Boston. So curious how you think about Harvard's connection to the community and what that means for economic mobility and employment.
Yeah, I'm happy to, thank you for that question, Gerald. And, one thing that I've prided myself in my career and my mobility is really aligning with organizations that are connected to the mission. Working especially in really reputable organizations that were committed to the overall holistic well-being of their community. Working for the Dimmock Center, the communities of Roxbury, Dorchester, Jamaica Plain, really focusing on a holistic approach to educational development, wellness, healthcare development, as well as really responding to the pandemic or the drug pandemic or the concerns about overdose. Really important work, dedicated work, and really my first opportunity to really engage with the community and ask what is it that's needed where we have so many dedicated, motivated individuals who are from Boston, generations from Bostonians, and really wanting to see their community, because these are their people, these are their families, in an upward mobility opportunity. And looking at the Dimmock Center, looking at Boston Medical Center, who also serves a similar community and population, and then having the opportunity to be here at Harvard, right? And what a wonderful opportunity it is to work alongside some folks that I studied about in my doctoral studies. It is an amazing opportunity to be able to do that. But I recognize that my ability in the pathway that I had is it's not an opportunity everyone has who looks like me, right? For the folks that I remember engaging with, the populations in Roxbury, Dorchester, Jamaica Plain, having this opportunity to sit here with all of you and to talk about this, this would not be a possibility. And what I look at, these types of opportunities, our partnership with Year Up, Harvard's partnership with Year Up, is a message saying this is possible, right? There is an opportunity that we're providing folks that others may not have, and to be able to sit in, to converse, to engage with a community across Harvard, selfishly within FAS, but being able to do that and learn and grow, it is an amazing opportunity to be able to do that. And that ultimately helps with supporting the development of issues with housing instability, housing insecurity, food insecurity. It all goes hand in hand, and it allows folks to understand this is possible. It is the hope, and it's the ability to say, if I'm able to form a pathway toward this could be possible for the improvement of not only me, but my family, those that I support, and others, and being a role model. So I look at this opportunity, this partnership in Harvard really being anchored and ingrained in this community. It gives a sense of, you can be here too. This is not impossible. This is not for just a group of people that are affiliated only with the Ivy League or affiliated with Harvard. You too can be here. You too are welcome. You are, we see you, we hear you, we want you. That's a big message that we want to make sure that we're conveying. That's what we're looking to convey in FAS,
right,
in HR, that we want to make sure that if you're willing and able, we want you. And that's important.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I'm happy to hear that. I want to, and you're going to hear from a speaker later on in the program, a young man who came through the Year Up program and has done amazing things. But one of the things that needed to happen was that people needed to see him, hear him. Also, from working within FAS, there are amazing people who came in through the Year Up program, have done amazing work, and I say this without any hesitation, but they needed to be seen, to be heard, to be valued, to be accepted. All right? And so that's the whole idea of Year Up. The partnership, it's not a charity, and I've said that often, and people look at me like, you're crazy, Etienne. I think I am a little crazy, but not in this way. And one of the things I say, it's not a charity, because when individuals come in through the program, one of the things that happens is they come in on day one, and they have expectations. One of the things Year Up says, if you're 1 minute late, you're late. you're not able to be present, you're not able to provide service, you're not able to contribute. So they know from day one. And so, you know, and we're going to hear again in terms of managers talking about Europe, interns talking about Europe, what they did the first day, how they did it. But before that, I want to turn it over to Alyssa and Gerald for them to talk to us about Europe's future. Why, Gerald, did you start in 2000 to do Europe? And I remember having my first conversation with you when I came into the Europe program. I'm like, you're crazy. You left Wall Street and you did this. And I remember you saying to me, you were a mentor for a young man and how you worked with him. And that was the thing that convinced you that I need to give back. So I'm going to turn it over to Alyssa and Gerald and, you know, just tell us, because I want folks to hear that we can make a difference.
Thank you, Attain. Boy, my head's so many thoughts in my head. So thank you all. But I'm going to focus back to that origin story a little bit that Attain is asking about. So Gerald, you're a graduate of Harvard Business School. From there, you went and worked on Wall Street, and then you left Wall Street to start Europe. So can you tell us a little bit about what the catalyst for that was, and perhaps how your experience at HBS influenced the shape of Europe?
Sure. Thank you, Alyssa. Appreciate it, and all the work you do to support this partnership. So thank you. I was really blessed to be part of the Big Brothers program, which has now been almost 40 years in total. I've been a big brother, but I had a very formative experience on Wall Street. I was matched with a 10-year-old boy who lived in what was then the most heavily photographed crime scene in New York City. And I ended up spending every Saturday of my life with this young boy. And after 3 years of Saturdays, what I saw changed my life forever, which was this young boy, David, who's now part of our family, had all the ability, motivation, the hustle, everything. But it was so clear to me. It was the bank balance of his mother, the school system he attended, the color of his skin, and his zip code were preventing him from reaching his potential. And I thought, this is wrong. It's wrong on every level for society, for our economy, for our community. And I remember I wrote my essays to get into Harvard Business School that said, if you let me into this school, someday I'm going to try, to the best of my ability, to close this opportunity divide that impacts millions of young people in this country. You know, it's probably 6 million young people who don't have that access and opportunity to earn livable wages. They're out of school, out of work, don't have more than a high school degree. And that's something we're trying to change in this country through Europe and through partnerships with Harvard, which, you know, has been one of our strongest partnerships across the whole country, and indeed a model for how to structure this, as you said, Attain, as talent acquisition. It's not charity, it's not corporate social responsibility, it's relevant, valuable talent for the best organizations in the country.
That's that I never tire of hearing the origin story, and I learn something new each time. So I did not realize that when you started at the business school, you already had a germ of this idea. So that's terrific. And some of the things that we talked about, I think it was your words about a healthy economy requires healthy communities. And Tiffany, you talked about the importance of bringing in folks to Harvard that may not have come in before, right? That it was a more exclusive Harvard community, and now it being a much more inclusive Harvard community, bringing in talent that may not have had access or been considered before, local, and as we talked earlier, also remote. So that's wonderful. So we have, as we've talked about, a long and deep history with Harvard, and a long and deep history with FAS in particular. Here we're talking. As you think of our mission to close the opportunity divide and diversify America's workforce, can you speak to the role you see our corporate partners like Harvard, how they help support that mission in a little more detail? Sure.
I mean, look, there are millions of folks in our country who have the ability. The question is, do you have access and opportunity? Right? We know talent's distributed evenly in this country, but opportunity is not. but it takes an organization like Harvard to say, we will provide access, provide opportunity for someone to show what they can do, right? To show that they have the ability and the motivation and the professionalism. And what Tiffany talked about as well is, it's not just hiring individuals who may have come from underrepresented communities. It's how do we ensure their retention, advancement, their sense of belonging and inclusion. And so really looking inwardly, what can we do to create environments within which everyone can thrive? And I think the work Harvard does, not only to bring folks into the organization, but interestingly, the research we've done with Harvard in various ways, whether it's at the business school or others, to start to prove what are the best practices in equitable employment, right? What leads to inclusion in terms of an HR policy? And so we've been blessed to do that work in research with Harvard over the years. And our hope is that we can take this to many other organizations that are seeking to do this, and to leverage the work we've done at Harvard to continue to build that, serve the institution, but also serve the knowledge building of what creates an equitable employer. I think of it as an opportunity employer, right? How do you become opportunity friendly? Just like organizations learn to become environmentally friendly, we can learn to become opportunity friendly based on a set of best practices, knowledge, frameworks. And that's what we're doing with Harvard.
Right.
It goes beyond the scope of Harvard to folks who look to Harvard as a leader across this country.
Right, that's terrific. So on multiple levels, Harvard is helping us to blaze those trails for our individual participants, and as well as for corporate America, to show them the way. And I think there's a uniqueness about Harvard that I really appreciate in working with the host managers and HR departments here, that there is this, it's just in the DNA to develop people and nurture people and to attain. I loved how you summarized it, about how our participants are seen, heard, accepted, and valued, right? And to Tiffany's point about representation, how that helpful it is for our students to be able to see themselves here in that way as well. That's terrific. So as Europe continues to innovate in this space and prepare our participants for an evolving corporate America, what would you like to share about things Europe is considering as we move forward?
So the work we do, it gets better and improves to the extent we partner well with our organizations that we work with. So we have to be attentive to what are the needs of Harvard, right? If this is now and moved over to talent acquisition recently, which is where I believe it always should be, that means we have to be attentive, right? If you want to be relevant and valuable to an organization's HR department, you have to meet the needs of that organization. And so the more we can create the forums for feedback, for learning what does Harvard value, what do they need, where are skills going, right? Because skills are always moving. And I think it's the creation of some of the, even the ways we've structured the partnership with steering committees so that we can make sure we get that feedback. And then our job is to continuously improve, keep measuring that, measuring how long our students stay in roles, right? How do we think about human capital writ large, not just hiring folks, but how they're performing over time. That's work that we do with Harvard. We do it together, and that creates greater value for the partnership writ large.
Great. And I look forward to working with you, our HR deans, our HR staff, as we explore further and how we can continue to evolve to meet the needs of Harvard. So thank you, Gerald.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alyssa. Thank you, Gerald. Scott, I'm putting you on the spot right now. Do you have any questions you'd like to ask Gerald? I mean, I think this is your second breakfast and your second sort of opportunity to have conversation with your Harvard partner, because you also went to the Harvard School of Public, the Kennedy School.
Yes.
So I want to make sure, and I know we're very competitive at Harvard. We think our schools are all the best. So I want to hear you talk about, now you've met Gerald, now you've heard his vision, your thoughts about how we move forward.
Sure. I think, I've met Gerald twice now, and each time has been a revelation to me, honestly, as a fairly traditional business and finance manager. Most of my career spent in administration and finance type roles. The first time we met, we talked about the hard work of pulling apart what a skills-based job description might really look like, and do we really need to always say college degree required or master's degree required or Harvard experience required for every single thing that we do, and that we've had some success doing that. Today, what I've heard you describe, and I want to challenge all of us at Harvard to take to heart, is the both moving this work into talent acquisition, and that this isn't sort of a social program, but this should be a key part of our mainstream talent acquisition strategy. But also the work that you're doing with the business school around best practices in recruitment and training and retention as well, and again to think of this work as a best practice. And so if you could maybe comment a little more on that, but then I would also turn to the folks on this call, because Harvard is famously decentralized, and ask ourselves, how can we do a better job inside of Harvard of disseminating these best practices and holding ourselves accountable to implementing them?
So I appreciate the question and your leadership on it. I think the reality is we've often built our institutions for what was a relatively homogeneous population. And as a result, we've normalized certain things that have made it more either easy, inclusive, or belonging for some groups than others. Not because we're bad people, because we actually designed systems for the group that was there, which was pretty homogeneous. For instance, one example of a policy. If I don't have a lot of money, I can't take advantage of tuition reimbursement. So tuition advancement is a concept. And so how does that impact someone who may not yet have gotten that 4-year degree, but needs to keep progressing and wants to keep progressing? How do they actualize that learning? Now, thank goodness at Harvard, our graduates take Harvard Extension School courses, very affordable, it's awesome. But I also think about, how does mentoring manifest itself, which research would say it's much harder for a person of color to get the same level and type of mentoring that a white person would often get. And that can be both gender-based, it can be racially impacted. So it's looking inwardly as well and saying, what might we be doing that we can undo, that we can disrupt? And I think the first part of that process is just assessing. Where are we? What are we already leading this country on? Where are we developing? Where can we just get better? In that kind of honest introspection, because it's unacceptable when we look at companies. I can't speak for Harvard, but I can look at other partners. The percentage of people of color decreases as you go up the level of hierarchy.
Right.
And that is unacceptable. So we have to say, well, what's causing that? Right? What might we be doing? Not because we are bad people. I'm sure there are bad people, but generally I believe the good in people. But to look at it introspectively and say, that's not right, we can disrupt it, we can do better, and then let's document what actually led to equitable employment, inclusive practices.
Right.
And the work we've done at some with HBS with Professor Fuller has been nationally significant work.
Excellent.
And we are very, very keen to keep that research agenda going, but we realize you're the experts in research, right? You know how to do that better than anyone. And so we want to partner with you to make sure we can help the rest of this country learn how to do this better and better.
Right. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. That's amazing. I mean, and I keep going back to Europe. I mean, the tracks that we have here, I'm going to explain in a minute. Financial operations, project management, business operations, software development, and IT. I think if you look at our positions, our entry-level positions, those skills that are outlined under these job headings are very, very important. In almost all our jobs, there are elements of these types of skills that we need in those jobs. So to hear you say, Scott, and I love the fact that we are also focused on how do we dismantle the idea that jobs need to have certain sort of like historical requirements, a degree, Harvard experience, whatever. And then when we think about it in a larger scale, we're competing for the same candidates as all the other universities in the area. And we have amazing universities in this area, all the biotechs, all the ITs, all the banks. How do we make ourselves different from? How do we make ourselves more competitive? And so I think that's just one aspect of when we pull that apart and say, hey, we have skills that are comparable. We have interns who come into our organization with these basic skills. And you're going to hear in terms of some of the folks who came in, they came in under one track. They were pliable, they were movable, they were bendable, they could adjust. And so where they are now is nowhere where they started. And so it's also shifted our mindset at Harvard that guess what? We're here to develop staff. Interns are staff. They come in. They get some type of subsidy, maybe not what we want them to get, and thanks to Year Up, that's getting better, where we're increasing our salary or sort of like subsidy to the Year Up interns. But they come in, and we as managers, as HR professionals, as staff at Harvard, we have to make sure that we invest in them, that we help them, that we see them. So I want to thank you for having the conversations with us. And what I'm going to do now is shift it to Greg Walton. And Greg is not in the studio, but Greg is around somewhere. And of course, I have to look to my camera folks to figure out where Greg is, but they'll tell me soon. And so this amazing young man, I see him now. He's going to slap me the next time he sees a gentle slap on my head. For some folks who may not know this, I worked at MIT before I came to Harvard. And I met Greg in 2008, a young man, fresh mouth, wide-eyed, who came into MIT as a Year Up intern. He came in 2007. By 2008, he was there in his little job, as he called it. I'm doing my thing, he said it was. And I think you've done your thing. But one of the things I want to say about Greg, and just to see how when we invest in people, they can grow, all right? Greg is a service provider and consumer support engineer. He leads a team, right? And I don't want to say when you came in, what happened to you. You can talk about that yourself, Greg. But one of the things that happened in 2010, all right, he was the first alum to be elected to Year Up's board, Year Up's national board, all right? And during his time there, he served on a variety of committees. He is now also still connected, and I don't want to steal your thunder. You're going to tell folks what you're doing now. But I want to just look back at MIT. In 2017, Greg, right? You were awarded the MIT Excellence Award. This is the highest honor that can be received by a staff person at MIT, all right? And you're also the first person to be inducted in both the Year Up and the Year Up Alumni Hall of Fame, right? Greg is an amazing speaker. He's often featured on CNN, CNBC, and other, news medias. And he talks about his work with young folks. He talks about how he motivates people. And his mission is currently to get more people to care and serve their communities and help create a positive movement of change that enables growth and growth sources for all. And I think Gerald talked about how we need to grow. Scott did that, and so did Tiffany. So there's this common thread that is running through all of the conversation that we've had thus far, all right? So Greg, I'm going to turn it over to you because I don't want to ask you a lot of questions because we could talk for 3 hours and I don't want that to happen. So you tell me about your journey and tell folks on the Zoom all about why you think it's important to be a change agent, to give back, what propelled you to move from where you were at 21 and to be where you are right now.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Etain. It's been a real joy knowing you for over 10 years now, and thank you for all your work, not just directly with Year Up, but just being a beacon of positivity and helping people. It's just been a real blessing to know you and be connected to you. But good morning, everyone. I feel really blessed to be here and be able to speak to all of you and share my experience and kind of before Year Up, during Year Up, and kind of after Year Up. And Etain did steal the thunder a little bit, but it's all right, of some of the things that I've been blessed to accomplish. But before Year Up, I was a Boston Public School grad. I was the first in my immediate family to graduate high school and go to college. I went to Salem State University. At that time, I was 17 and very immature and not what I would say supported and prepared for being an adult. And that unfortunately led me to being what I kind of feel is a typical young adult who makes mistakes. And unfortunately for me, that landed me in jail in the Suffolk County House of Correction in Roxbury, right? So talk about places in your community. But in that journey, the beauty of hearing a lot of you speak already is pretty much valued the importance of people. And I happen to have a high school guidance counselor who throughout that journey pretty much loved on me in a way that was really powerful and pretty much set an expectation of, Greg, I know you've made some mistakes, but these mistakes will not define you. And I'm going to support and love on you to help you go through this situation. And they did. And they were the person who actually told me about the program Year Up after I was released in 2005, and pretty much connected me with someone at admissions at Year Up and pretty much validated that, yes, Greg has made some mistakes, but I think he's an awesome young man and he deserves a second chance. And I just think about if you don't have people like my guidance counselor, Chrissy Ludwig, who step up and do things like that, and then also people like Gerald Tratavian, who's in the studio, who decide to say, I could easily take care of my family and not think about anybody else. But I realized that through, being a mentor and a big brother in a Big Brothers program, I want to start something or create something that benefits people that don't come from neighborhoods or backgrounds that I come from. It goes back to that connection to the reality of people. So just really blessed that I got connected with Year Up, and thank you again, Gerald, for starting an amazing organization. And I was able to go through that program. I did really well and graduate. And post-graduation, I actually had an HR director at MIT who was at the graduation, pretty much scout me for about a 6-month period post-graduation, and pretty much made it their point to get me to MIT. And here I am 15 years later now as an IT support engineer, thanks to that HR director, again, the power of people, Allison Dolan, who pulled me in and said, I know your story. I've been watching your work and I believe in you, and I want to give you an opportunity at MIT to show your worth. And here I am some time later now, being able to serve thousands of staff and students and professors and faculty at MIT. So it's been an amazing journey, and just really thankful to, again, people like you, Etain, who decide to partner and lean in and see how we can all make a difference to help make these stories not a miracle and more possible at places like MIT and Harvard.
Bring me back to memory lane, because I remember Allison Dolan. And I think when I met you in the Infinite Corridor, for those folks who don't know what that is, it's this long corridor. And supposedly when you go from one end to the other, you can see the sun. And depending on where the sun is, will tell you what time of day or where the shadow is. I don't know that. I mean, I left MIT not trying to, I couldn't figure it out, but I guess that's okay. I'm here now. But, Greg, if you look back at your 21-year-old self, and I remember there's something that's really pivotal that happened at 21 for you. Would you have imagined that you would have been here today talking to me about all the amazing things you've done? Could you even imagine it?
No, I don't think I could have imagined it. I just, I thank God. I mean, I've really been blessed, but I really just think it's been because of, obviously going through a program like Gear Up and just really being connected to some really caring, loving, everything you said in the opening of feeling like I was heard and loved on in a powerful way, where it wasn't my immediate family. I come from a foster care background. My mom battled drug addictions at a young age. I didn't know my father at a young age. So I was coming from a place of really not having a lot of love and support. So getting connected with an organization like Gear Up and just meeting really just powerful people who just loved on me and invested the time, energy, and effort in my life is really just, like I said, I would have never believed that I could accomplish the things that I've been able to accomplish. You highlighted winning the highest honor you can win at a place like MIT. In the serving the client category, and MIT Excellence Award is just, really a testament to those people, right? If those people don't invest into me the way that they do, like, I don't think it's possible. So I certainly do not think I would be where I am today. And I still have a ways to go. So I'm just really thankful.
Well, I'm thankful for you, Greg, but I want to just do one other little thing in the sense that, Greg talked about all the people who loved on him. And yeah, people loved on him. But he also made a decision that, hey, I'm at a point where I need to make changes. So we're going to hear from 2 Year Up or former Year Up interns who are now employees. And we have 2 managers, and they're going to talk to us about how that transition happened. So Greg, I thank you, because then it makes me realize how important it is for folks to invest in others, and the investment paid off. And I want to hear from the manager how their investment has paid off in terms of the folks or the young people, because they will correct me when I call them folks, and I don't want that to happen today. For the young people who've joined our staff, I'm going to do a shout out, because right now I want to introduce to you Kristen Weiss-Carver and Pravang Patel, 2 managers who have current Year Up interns. And the interns are Madeline Nova and Pedro Almanzar. And Pedro, he's on the camera. So this is how we do it at Harvard, where we have folks who are skilled, who know what they're doing, and it happens all the time. And Pedro is a current employee within the innovation team. So talk to me, people, about the journey from internship to employment. And I'm going to start off first by asking Kristen, share some thoughts with me.
Absolutely. So I actually started our process by being one of you folks out there. I went to the Year Up event last year and learned what it was all about. It seemed too good to be true in a way, because we had a really pressing need for some help in our studio. We do a lot of high stakes events in here, and we have a very small, tight-knit team. So we were looking for somebody who could come in immediately and really just hit the ground running. So I worked closely with Alyssa to figure out and sort of match with somebody that would be a good fit. Our request was somewhat unique because there isn't a proper audio-visual track, but she said, there's somebody in our business track that I think would be a good fit. And I really said, I don't care so much about the technology, because in technology you're always retraining, it's always changing. And I just really wanted somebody that had a great attitude, and that's something that you can't train for anyway. So I wanted somebody that would be willing to learn and really jump in with both feet. I remember when I was a young person, I had an internship and I felt like I didn't make the most of it. So I did say that I really hoped we could get somebody that would speak up and not be afraid to be part of the conversations. And we landed with Pedro, and it's been a really wonderful process so far. And now I'm happy to say that he's on the team beyond the internship.
Okay. So I'm looking at Pravang, and Pravang is the executive director in the Harvard College Observatory. And we had conversations way back when Madeline came on board. What prompted you to, even before Madeline came on board, to decide I need a Year Up intern, or I need an intern? What was in your, what were you thinking of?
So for us, it was a win-win in the sense that we were incredibly short-staffed. We had multiple projects that were ongoing, and I still remember I got the email about the year program, and I was like jumping up and down. I'm like, what is this? We got to get one of their interns. This is a great program. So that's kind of how we went about it, and then we sort of thought about it as like more of a project-based role. And for us, what's fascinating is we started off in and Madeline can jump in as well, we started off as a very project-driven role, focusing on our websites, our social media aspect of it. And by the time we were done, we evolved into completely something different. And so for us, it was a need, which Europe certainly, more than delivered. But it was also, working with somebody who may have not really thought about, being at the observatory in any role. It's not really something that comes to somebody's mind.
Okay, thank you. And I mean, for folks who don't understand, and I want to go back again to Kristen and to Praveen, I wanted for you to tell me a little bit about your department, Praveen, and also Kristen, because I want us to understand that we have departments that folks may think like, oh my God, I could never work there. Oh my God, what will my role be? I don't know anything about that field. But talk to us about what do you do in your department? And Kristen, I want to hear from you also. What happens in your department?
Sure. Do you want me to go first?
Sure.
So the innovation team, we're actually a relatively new team. We spun off from the teaching and learning team just before the pandemic, and our primary responsibilities are really in designing and building technology solutions for the Division of Continuing Education, and also operating this interactive studio that we're in today. This studio is really designed for high-profile, high-stakes events. So, I could kind of see where you're going with it a little bit. Yeah, so I mean, this is the sort of environment where, we have President-elect Gay coming in, and we have, FAS faculty coming in all the time. And, we definitely have a professional environment, and there's a lot of technology in here. When people come into this space, the first thing they say is, wow, and then sometimes they say, this isn't for me, this is too much. But it's our job to really put those folks at ease and handle all the technology and take all of that out of their hands. And Pedro has really taken on almost every role in the studio. I mean, we saw him on the camera earlier. He's done sound. He's done hosting Zoom calls. I remember the first week you were in here, we had the video switcher and the audio board, and the first thing you said was, I want to sit there. So
Nice.
And
That's Pedro.
Yep, that's where we've gotten to.
Okay. All right, and Praveen, I want folks, because some folks may not understand, because we have folks from Harvard. I want to make sure that I say thank you for the people from Harvard, but we also have other participants from other institutions here on this program today, because there's several other, we have colleagues and they reach out to us like, what is Harvard doing? How are we finding staff? And so we've asked other people to come on the Zoom, just of course to show what we do at Harvard, but also to educate them about Year Up. So Praveen, tell me about your department.
So the College Observatory is actually it's a very storied department. It originates in the some of our most famous glass plates collections, which were essentially pictures of the stars sort of taken by astronomers, but really deciphered in spirit of Women's Day yesterday. It was some of the leading science that was done at the HCO was done by women, what they were called at Harvard Computers. The department has evolved in the sense that today it houses at the 60 Garden Street complex the Department of Astronomy, and HCO is a research arm of Department of Astronomy. And for many folks that may not know, we also are a collaborator and a partner of the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory, and together we form the Center for Astrophysics. So in that whole component, we do some of the leading research that many of you have probably heard of. So we are very much involved in the JWST stuff that just went on. We're involved with some of the biggest telescopes around the world. So basically we lead space science research.
Thank you, Praveen, thank you. I'm gonna go back to Pedro. I know that, Pedro, you've done some amazing things, and he's sitting there cool, calm, and he does his thing, and he just flips from one to the other. He was on the mic a minute ago. Talk to me. What were your thoughts when you came into DCE? the first day they asked you to do something that you've never done before. Harvard can be a very overwhelming place. Talk to me about that. And I'm going to ask Madeline in a few minutes. I'm not ignoring you, Madeline, because I want to hear your thoughts about going up to Gardner Street. But Pedro, talk to me about that.
Well, I mean, besides coming into this amazing studio on my first day, coming into Harvard in general for me was a pretty wild experience, to say the least. Me personally, I never expected to like even go to a college at all. So being able to be on Harvard's campus for me was like a great accomplishment just in itself. So besides that, it was really an awesome experience, honestly. It was everything I could have asked for coming to this studio. The very first day, as you said, they had me on the switcher, and I have never had any AV background, any camera background, and it was something new, and I think that's why I took so much of a liking to it, since I had to learn it from the ground up, and this is something like I hadn't had to do since I was a child. It was sort of like bringing me back to my inner child, very like learning the basics of stuff. But yeah, really, it was mind-blowing, to say the least, and I could say I was slightly overwhelmed, but I think I handled it to the best of my ability.
I think you did. You're still here, and I'm happy that you're here. But how did Europe prepare you to come in and embrace something that was so different, something you would never think you could do? How did they prepare you?
Yeah, that is a good one. Well, Europe, I was in the business track, so I learned like a lot. I had a business communications and like learning like Microsoft Excel and stuff like that, which is completely left field of what I'm doing now. But I think they still taught me a lot of core values, like the core values that Europe has, you know, respect, embrace diversity and things like that. All those things, me bringing that into this workspace, I think helped elevate us as a team. And then also like the communication skills helped me build my personal character and like the way I speak to people about myself, giving the elevator pitches. That's something we worked on a lot in Europe. Yeah, I think they really prepared me well for like the whole world that's ahead.
And you have a long journey ahead of you. You know, we talked to Greg, and Greg, I met him many moons ago. So you can see yourself fast-paced to 10 years from now. And the lesson that Greg shared with us, I think is a lesson that you will always remember. I don't want to ignore Madeline. So Madeline, when you came into Harvard, what did you think? When you walked up to Gardner Street, what were your thoughts?
I was extremely nervous to begin with. I never visioned stepping foot in Harvard campus as well. Just like Pedro said, as a immigrant, I never thought that I would have the opportunity to be able to actually, you know, go and meet all these wonderful people that I have so far. So it was definitely nerve-wracking to me, but it was also kind of a full circle moment for me, seeing as I had so much job experience elsewhere, and kind of being able to tie it back to the things that I learned at Europe, and then also the things that I was learning in my internship. So it was a really great experience for me as an intern.
And I think when I think back to the conversation that I had with Pervane, it was an amazing experience because you then transitioned to a position. And I remember Pervane calling me and saying, in fact, I'm not going to say what Pervane said to me. Pervane, what did you say to me when you talked about Madeline?
Do we have to wait till the end of the internship to convert her into a full-time role?
Okay.
So we were eager to move on.
But it was based upon her performance.
Yes.
It was based upon her understanding the role, her ability
drive
to adapt. And so it was not a free ride.
Oh, no, certainly not. She proved herself from day one. Phenomenal communicator, excellent follow-up. I mean, everything that we look for in a stellar, no pun intended, employee.
Right.
So.
And I'm happy to hear that. And Kristen, you talked to me about sending Pedro over to the B school. I can't remember the story exactly, but it was like, wow. Talk to me about that.
So, in the studio here, we do, like I mentioned, we do a lot of high-profile events, and we actually got asked to do an on-campus event over at the Kennedy School, and so we were sort of figuring out if we could support it or not, and we actually had something happening in here those days, so we had to say no. We were saying, we can't be in two places at once. And Pedro and another one of our full-timers said, the two of us could do it. We could go over there, we could learn the system and work with them, and they really, the two of them spearheaded that whole, was it a 3-day event?
I believe so, yes, 3 days.
So, it allowed us to be in two places at once and do two different projects at once. And they were extremely happy. They said that all of the administrative folks and the donors who were there, it was like a big, high-profile event, and they were so happy. They said, "Can we do this next year?" Basically, the day it ended. So that was all Pedro and our other employee, Red Kasu.
Oh, Red, who's on the camera there?
Red's on camera.
My best friend that I just met yesterday, and we will remain friends. You know what? You said a high-profile donor, and I don't want to name drop here, but it was a real high profile, and I think we need to be careful when we drop the names. But I will say this to you, Harvard is such an amazing place, and for Pedro, I'm sure he must have Googled this person's name and like, oh my God, yes. I better not make a mistake. And the fact that he handled it, again, is a real attribute to Europe in terms of how they prepare folks like Madeline and Pedro to say, hey, you're going to be faced with different stuff. You're going to be faced with new stuff. How you adjust, how you adapt. The track that you came through on was not what you're doing now. And Kristen and Pravang pointed to that in the sense that we have certain basic skills, but attitude, behavior, commitment makes a difference. And that's what we ask for employees. We ask them to come in, to commit to the work, to do the work, apply themselves. So we're not treating the Year Up interns any way different. And as the folks are on the call today, if you have questions about the Year Up program or have questions that you want to ask any of these managers, put it in the chat and Megan will tell us what those questions are, and then we can just have like a conversation in real time, because you may have questions. But we're also going to hear from Alyssa, who's going to tell us about the program details, what we need, what we don't need, when it starts, all of that. But if you have some questions, hey, they're right here. Because I'm sure folks are thinking like, well, how do I treat my Year Up interns? What do I say to them if they're not coming to work? How do I get them to work? All of that good stuff. Questions from the audience? From our Zoom participants?
Ethan, quick question. Would it be okay for them to raise their hand in case they want to have a conversation?
It would be perfect, because I want to hear people's voices. And since, we're not, one day we may have a breakfast, but now we are having a studio and we're having Zoom, so folks can raise their hands. And Megan, just in case I can't see, can you just point out who the folks are?
You got it.
Don't be shy. Okay. Well, guess what? If we have no questions, we're going to provide you with some information. And since you have no questions, then I think you're all committed to getting a Year Up intern. Who? Is there a question?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
We have Andrea raising her hand.
Andrea.
Hello, everyone. I don't have a question, but I have more of a statement and a request. I think from everything we heard today and the information that was presented, it all speaks to the power of mentoring young people. And so my request is that, I hope everyone will participate in the Year Up program. It's a fabulous program. It's a proven program. And from what you've seen today under Attain's leadership and all of her partners and colleagues, it's a successful program that can help us really, like Gerald said, close that gap. But I request that even if you don't decide to participate in Year Up, partner with Attain or someone and find other ways that you can sow into the lives of young people. Because that is how I think we're going to make the changes that we need to make in our society and in our world, and we can change the lives of people that otherwise would not have that opportunity. So I just thank everyone for their efforts with this. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you for saying that, because I think sometimes we say, you know, based upon the work and the budget, we don't have the ability to engage in the program. But it doesn't mean that you can't reach out to me and have conversations with me about the program. How can I help you make that decision? How can I help work with you? And the FAS folks know that there's a probability that our FAS HR can support you in terms of the funding. I can support you. All the diversity team can support you. And we have an FAS diversity team. Andrea is the director of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have Chris Keller on the phone, and of course our Megan, who is also the program person who manages this. And we have folks who are there who can work with you. In addition, everyone on here has an HR consultant. And the HR consultant works closely with you to help you manage employees in your group. It means that they can also help you when you get a Year Up intern to work with you on how you can manage that Year Up intern. So don't be shy. Don't think it's something that you cannot do. You can do it. Several folks have done it before, and Kristen and Pervang, and I remember that they have done it too. So here's what I want to do. Are there any other questions?
There is a question in the chat.
Which one is that?
I'll just read it off from the chat, okay? So the question is, how do you start with onboarding with a year intern? What is important to get someone off to a good start?
Are you asking Kathy? Would you like me to answer? But I'll answer from an HR perspective, and I'm also going to ask Pervang and Christian from their point of view. One of the things that Year Up does, Year Up works closely with Harvard in terms of the onboarding of the Harvard system. So for example, when the Year Up intern comes in, we do all the creation of all their identity, and working with Hewitt, we do all of that. We also talk to them about the policies, and we have an FAS HR team that does new employee orientation. The Year Up intern is included in that orientation. So they get a sense of what is Harvard, what is this big, amazing place? Where are the buildings? Who has where, what, when? How do I go to get whatever? Where are the places to eat? Can I go to the library? Can I use the gym? All those questions are there, and they get answers to that. So, but in the sense of what happens in a department, I want to hear from Christian and Pervang. How did you onboard your Year Up intern? And I also want to hear from Pablo and Madeline. What would you have loved to have happen on your first day? All right, so who wants to start?
You this time.
Okay.
So for us, it's we wanted to make sure that she had an adequate sort of team of support. So for us, our assistant director, Valerie O'Kane, was incredibly involved. She was her direct supervisor as well. And there were other people in the office. So we made sure that she had all the tools and resources. We, as Tane said, HR had already set her up in the system. For us, it was more about getting her familiar with HCO, the complex, getting her introduced to all the right people. So she knew who to go for what. So it was really, we wanted to make her feel home, and that was our goal. So,
Kristen?
Yeah, I think for us, I didn't really see much of a difference in onboarding Pedro than any other employee. I mean, it's really the same thing. It's setting expectations, especially, now we're in this new hybrid work environment. So sort of setting expectations with all the logistics in terms of that, getting Pedro a computer and, like letting him know like how we operate. We tend to communicate on Slack a lot, so getting him set up on Slack. But I don't really see a difference as far as, it's just general logistics. I think in terms of keeping somebody going and having them get off to a good start and then having it go well after that is really just treating the Europe folks, they're just another member of the team.
Perfect.
It's really the same, and we've done some team building type things. We've done some extracurricular
Activities.
events and things, which have been great. But yeah, it's really no different. And you were saying earlier, about how it's just a different path into Harvard, and the attitude is really the most important thing. I've hired people. I've been at Harvard a long time. I've hired people that have had the degree and don't have the attitude. And I will take somebody from the Europe internship every day of the week, just because of my experience with Pedro.
Thank you. Pedro, did you feel as if this is my place? These are my people? Madeline, did you feel like, hey, I'm with my family? Tell me about that.
You can go first.
Sure. I think it's so important to highlight something that really helped me feel at home, like Pervane said, was having one-to-ones with my direct supervisor, Valerie O'Kane. Creating that connection, creating that relationship was super important to me. She became someone that I felt was mentoring me through her example, not just through her advice. And that was super, super important to me throughout my internship. And we constantly do, team lunches. We have done team retreats together as well. And, just that sense of we all have each other's back.
Nice.
It's seen throughout all events that we're doing, all meetings that we're hosting. And yeah, they have done a great job at making me feel like I belong there and like they belong to me as well.
Oh, that's nice. And Pedro?
For me, yeah, from day one, I definitely felt welcomed by everybody on the team. On to what Christian was mentioning before with the extracurricular activities, we had, we go out to lunch as a team a lot, and there was like one day we had like a whole movie night. We went out to see Jaws, the original Jaws, and I really feel like these moments where we're not in the workspace and we're out and we're just ourselves and getting to know one another, I feel like these really build like good relationships for the workspace, so that once we're back in this space, we work off each other, and it sort of like flows like a well-oiled machine, and everything is going great once we have those relationships built in.
I mean, you keep saying relationships, and I keep thinking relationships matter, and if those relationships are not properly developed, then, and folks who know me know that I talk about my niece a lot. And one of the things my niece would say to me is that, and she was like 21, 22, she said, Auntie, relationships have to enhance your life. If they don't enhance your life, they impede your life, right? And so to hear how much of those relationships that you've formed throughout the year, that they have enhanced your life, or the relationships that you formed and later developed when you came into Harvard, in terms of how it's enhancing your life and how you're growing and how your journey is turning into this amazing thing that you're getting excited about, and you want to come back tomorrow and do the work all over and to see your people. It makes me feel very, very happy. So to Kathy's question, onboarding is important. It's important because that's what you remember when you join an organization. If the onboarding goes badly, you're going to be like, oh my God, why did I come here? So for folks who are out there, we can also help you manage that process and help you with your Year Up intern or any other employee who comes into Harvard. We can help you with that within your departments. I want to thank you for having the conversation with me, managers and interns. And I'm sure we're going to go hang out for some extracurricular activity after this at some point. But I want to bring up Alyssa Arnold, our Director of Year Up Partnerships, because I want her to share information with us about what we do, how we move forward, how you get your interns here, what information do you need to have. And she's going to come up and be my co-host. And so I want to let you know I'm feeling like I'm on some CNN show, as I just said co-host. But that's what it is. Come on, Alyssa. But you have to move me out of the way.
No, you're fine.
I'm fine.
Okay.
Right. because I can't get
think we're
down off
fine.
there because I'm too short. They put me up here and I can't get off. Okay, Alyssa, so I'd love for you to just talk to us about steps that needs to happen if we're going to get an intern.
Great.
What
And
is
before
that?
I do that, can I just say thank you? And you are a natural at this desk.
Oh.
And you have done, hasn't she done, a fantastic job facilitating
you.
this really engaging
I'm
and
doing
exciting
it because
program.
I'm excited
I
about
know.
Europe and I
I
love
know.
it. And I can only do stuff when I'm committed to it. I can't read a script. I'm doing
Yes.
it because I'm totally committed to it.
Yes, it's
Okay.
clear, it comes from your heart.
Okay.
And I'm thrilled.
And
So
because
thank you.
also I can't get off here because guess what? Red put me up here and he says don't get off.
That's right. She's not allowed to move. So thank you.
Sorry, so stop being
Anyway,
silly. Come on.
So right now, I just want to spend a very few minutes going through some of the logistics on the practicalities of how folks can express interest and hopefully host interns. So I think there is a little PowerPoint to show. So here we go.
Oh, you can do that?
Yes, I can do that. I have the power now.
I'm
Great.
impressed. You can do that.
So this is a slide that I share with our interns as they're getting ready for their journey, because their Europe experience is a journey, right? They start in L&D, which is our learning and development phase, and spend 6 months there, and then come on their corporate Harvard, whatever, internship for 6 months. That is launching them into full-time employment. And so, as I tell all of our managers as we begin this journey together in the internship phase, that our internships come to you internship ready. You've heard from our folks here about the skills they've learned and how they came into the space and how they developed once they were here. So it's our job in partnership to get our interns into this next phase of employment and job readiness. So, and that's the favorite part of my job, is working with the managers of our interns. So Attain alluded to some of our tracks before, so just so that you know, we train in information technology, and that is specifically IT help desk and desktop support, cybersecurity, and data analysis. We also train in finance and business operations / project management, and both Madeline and Pedro were in that track. And I call that the liberal arts of Europe, because as you can see, they are well prepared for their journey ahead and learn fantastic transferable skills. Okay. Let's see, what is our next slide? So just a little bit of our timeline. So in April, we'll be assessing interest from our various corporate partners. And by mid-May, we will need to get into some of the details of what the expectations would be for an intern in your department. Then in June, we begin a very robust matching process. I think both Pedro and Madeline were very pleased with their matches. And
we're happy with their matches. Okay.
Yes. Thank you. And it's a very robust process that Europe goes through with knowledge of our interns to be, because you're still students at that time, and knowledge of the various opportunities before them, and we help decide where the best fits are for all of our students. Right? So we do that in June. Then in July, we make our internship announcements. Early in July, we make our internship announcements to both our interns and to our partners. And we begin the technical onboarding process of getting any of the clearances that they need and all the paperwork done. And then the onboarding you spoke to a little bit more was about welcoming the intern into the department and the team. So, and then in July, late July 24th, I think, is the first day of internship for the new cohort. And our current cohort will be graduating and leaving Harvard on July 21st.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to cry.
But you're going to have a new set of interns coming in
I
right
know.
on their heels
I know,
that are
I
going
know,
to be
I know,
equally
I
exciting.
I know.
And you're going to be very proud of
I
the
get
graduating
attached to my
interns.
Europe
Yes, you
interns,
do.
just so you know that.
Right. But
They never leave my life.
Right. Hopefully,
Greg just said that. We met in 2007.
Right. Hopefully they don't leave Harvard so
we're
quickly
still
either.
together.
Yes.
Go on.
Yes. And hopefully they don't leave Harvard either, so that you are able to maintain a long, happy relationship even here on campus.
Okay. My family, yes.
Yes. Great. And let's see. I think that's really it. I just wanted to thank everybody for participating. And we couldn't do this without you. We are here for you, but can't do this without you. So thank you so much.
I'm going to say thanks to everyone. I want to say thanks to Scott Jordan. You heard him earlier. And Tiffany, you heard her also, because they support our Year Up program and they make the funding possible for our interns in FAS. I'm also going to say thank you to Pervang and to Kristen Weiss over, because you are the two managers that you're not different from anyone, but you show us what's possible. You show us that if you invest, the returns are folks like Pedro and Madeline. So I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. But I think, you know what? When we decided that we were going to come to the studio, we were like, oh my God, this is kind of new. What are we going to do? And we were kind of confused. So I want to say to the innovation team, and I mentioned them earlier on this morning, and I'm going to say, you need to show that Pedro is a part of that innovation team. I want to say thank you all for inviting us over here so we could have the program. You know, I appreciate all the work you do. I appreciate you, and I appreciate your ability to just give us information and guidance that we could have used to make this program what it is. And I want to thank the audience for coming, and thank you for spending your time with us. And I look forward to hearing from you. My number, my email address is still there. It hasn't changed. So please reach out to us. And I want to thank you for the Harvard support that we get. Gerald talked about that in terms of the steering committee and the program committee. So put that up on the screen so we can see what that looks like, because it takes a village to get this work done across Harvard. So thank you all for spending your time with us. And I really, really want to hear from you. Thank you.
And the interns that are on the call right now?
Oh, yes.
Maybe you'll
Can
be
you do me a
sitting in this seat
favor?
in 6
I
months.
want some interns who are on the call. How could I do that? That is really bad. Interns, show your hand. Please tell me. Oh, there you are. Okay. I'm loving on you right now. I'm so happy to see you all. I am so sorry that I did not recognize you earlier on, but I promise, and Madeline and Pedro will hold me to this. I'll make it up to you. I will make it up to you. I will definitely make it up to you, okay? Pedro and Madeline, hold me to that, okay? All right, and thank you for just spending your time, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day, okay? Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.